He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still. They reached out, after all the silence, after the distance, after disappearing like you were just a phase. One message, and suddenly your heart skips a beat, your mind starts racing. You feel that pull again, the pull that used to break you. But don't reply, not yet, because what you do next will determine everything. This moment is not about them. It's about you, your power, your peace, your self-respect. Before we go deeper, do me a favor. Like this video, hit that subscribe button and stay close. This one is going to shift something inside you. You're not here by accident. You're here because something in you is done playing small. So stay with me. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a locked vault filled with everything they once took for granted. Your love, your attention, your energy. And when they walked away, they thought they'd always have the key. They thought they could disappear for days, weeks, months, and still come back whenever they pleased. Like you were a convenience. Like you were just waiting on standby, hoping they'd remember you exist. But they didn't expect the silence to change you. They didn't expect that while they were off feeding their ego, you were in the dark, sharpening your soul. They thought you'd break, but instead, you rebuilt. You became something they never imagined, unavailable, and now they're reaching out, not because they miss you, but because your silence made them insecure. You see, when someone vanishes and then sends a casual, "Hey, how you been?" That's not a love letter. That's not growth. That's not healing. That's bait. That's ego. That's curiosity dressed up as care. They're not reaching out to fix what they broke. They're reaching out to check if you're still broken, if they still have a grip on your heart. They want to know if the door is still open, because deep down, they fear it's not. My friends, let me make something clear. You're not a revolving door. You're not a memory they can revisit when they get lonely. You're not a backup plan, or a safety net, or a second chance waiting to be picked up. You are a storm they tried to escape, and now they want to dance in the rain like nothing ever happened. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. It's healing. It's power. It's the loudest message you could ever send. When you don't reply, you're not ignoring them. You're honoring yourself. You're saying, "I don't need to explain myself to someone who vanished without explanation." Your silence made them speak. Now your response, or the absence of it, makes them feel. Don't let a single text undo everything you've built in solitude. Don't let one message reopen wounds that cost you nights of sleep. They had your presence, and they wasted it. Now, let them feel your absence, because you're not the same person they left. You're wiser, colder, sharper, and the version of you they knew, that version is gone. You owe them nothing, not even a reaction, and if they truly regret what they did, let them prove it, not with a weak message, but with consistent actions, real effort, real growth, because the one who hurt you doesn't get to waltz back in with a "hey." That's not how healing works. That's not how you work anymore. So say this with me and drop it in the comments right now. I hold the power. Say it again, out loud. Let it settle in your bones. I hold the power. Don't chase, don't beg, don't explain. Let them sit in the silence they created. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me. Because what's coming next will teach you how to never be played again. 1. Why you want to reply so badly, and why that's dangerous. The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. Marcus Aurelius. You see the message, and suddenly your whole body tightens. Your heart kicks into overdrive, your breathing shifts. That one notification has the power to flip your day, maybe even your week, and you haven't even opened it yet. That's how deep they still live in your nervous system. It's wild, isn't it? How someone can vanish like you never mattered, leave your texts on read, leave you on empty, and yet the moment they send you a simple, "Hey," your mind goes into a spiral. You want to reply instantly. Something in you feels like this is it. The moment you've been waiting for. The apology, the recognition, the storybook comeback. But hold on. Pause. Don't let the old illusion trap you again. Imagine this. You're a castle built out of stone. You've fortified your walls, rebuilt after being shattered. And here they come again, not with an army to love you better, not with tools to repair what they broke, but with a knock at your gate, whispering the same old lines. And yet somehow, your hand still reaches for the key. Why? Because, my friend, you've been conditioned to believe that someone returning is a form of closure, that them reaching out is proof that you mattered, that maybe, just maybe, they finally see your worth. But that belief, that's the trap. That's the lie. What you're feeling, it's not love, it's not fate, it's not the universe trying to bring you two back together. It's wounded hope. It's your inner child whispering, maybe this time they'll choose me. It's the ghost of abandonment. It's the fear of being forgotten, of being left behind while they move on untouched. Your mind starts throwing questions at you like darts. What if they've changed? What if this time it's real? What if I don't reply and lose my only chance? That fear, that choking fear, it's not about them. It's about you, about your need to be seen, heard, validated. And there's nothing wrong with that until you go looking for that validation from the same person who shattered it in the first place. As Seneca once said, it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. You're scared to hold your silence because you've been trained to believe silence is rejection, that if you don't respond, you're being cold. That kindness means engagement. But hear this, you can be kind without reopening the door. You can be compassionate without sacrificing your boundaries. You can be healing and still choose distance. You want to reply because a part of you still seeks closure. But my friend, closure isn't something they give you. Closure is something you give yourself when you decide not to bleed again from the same wound. Yes, it's hard. It's hard because they once meant something, because your heart was once open to them in ways you haven't opened it to anyone else, because you shared laughs, memories, vulnerabilities. But you also shared silence, their silence, and silence speaks louder than words. Silence says, I don't care enough to stay. So now, when they reach out with a little crumb, you're tempted to accept it like it's a feast. But don't confuse a breadcrumb for a meal. You've been starving, but that doesn't mean you settle for scraps. This is the time to rise above the need for instant emotional relief, to rise above the impulse, because power isn't shown in your reaction. It's shown in your restraint, the strength it takes to not respond when every cell in your body wants to. That's real control. That's real self-mastery. This is your opportunity to show yourself who you've become in their absence. You're not just someone who got left behind. You're someone who learned how to stand up stronger, alone. Someone who didn't fall apart when they vanished. Someone who's becoming unreachable to the same pain that once had easy access. So here's what I want you to do. Drop this in the comments right now. I choose silence over weakness. Say it out loud too. Whisper it if you have to, but own it. Let the world see it. Let them feel it. Let your future self thank you for it. Because what's coming next, it's not just about how to respond. It's about how to reverse the dynamic completely. How to become the person they'll never again be able to manipulate. So stay with me. The next part will open your eyes even wider. 2. Their text isn't what you think it is. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. They texted you, out of nowhere. After all the silence, the disappearing act, the empty space they left behind like a crater. And now, here you are, staring at your phone like it's some kind of lifeline. Like this one little message holds the answers to all the questions that kept you awake at night. Maybe it says, "Hey," or "How have you been?" Maybe it's even a voice note. Casual, light, effortless. But the way it hits you, it's not casual at all, is it? That tiny line feels like an earthquake in your chest. It's like they cracked open the door you finally nailed shut. You start wondering, why now? What does this mean? Do they miss me? Do they want to come back? And just like that, your mind goes to war with your heart. But I need you to hear me clearly. That message is not what you think it is. It's not an apology. It's not some grand realization. It's not a sign from the universe. That message is a hook, and they're hoping you'll bite. It's not coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of ego. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been building a house from scratch, a home inside yourself. After they left, it was rubble, debris, shattered pieces. But you stayed. You rebuilt. Brick by brick, you created something stronger, something sacred. And now, out of nowhere, they show up and tap on the window. Not to help, not to stay, but just to peek in and see if they still have a key. They're not walking back in with flowers and effort. They're not saying, "I'm sorry I broke this." No, they're just testing the door. You want it to mean something. You want to believe it's deeper than it looks. But I'm here to tell you the truth. It's usually not. This isn't love. It's ego maintenance. They want to know if you're still there. If they still matter. If they still have access. That's not romance. That's control in disguise. And if it really meant something, if they truly regretted walking away, then their message wouldn't be vague. It wouldn't be so light it barely touched the surface. It would be deliberate. It would carry weight. It would sound like, "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I want to make it right." But this one-liner, it's a feeler, a poke, a breadcrumb to see if you'll chase. Because if you respond too fast, if you pour your heart into that reply, they'll know they still have you, that you're still emotionally available. And once they know that, they don't have to wonder anymore. They don't even have to try. Your attention becomes their trophy, and they go back to their life, knowing they can pick you up and put you down whenever they choose. Let's be honest, people don't usually miss you. They miss the version of themselves they were when they had your attention. They miss the way you made them feel. They miss the power. And when your silence starts echoing louder than your words ever did, they get uncomfortable. So they text. Not because they care, but because your indifference is starting to bother them. Your job is to see it for what it is. not what you wish it was, because your mind will try to dress it up. Your heart will want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But your soul knows. Your soul felt the silence they gave you. And you owe it to yourself not to forget how loud that silence was. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is your power, right here, not in how fast you respond, not in how warm your words are, but in your ability to pause, to see through the noise, to choose peace over desperation, clarity over illusion. So here's what I want you to do. Write this in the comments. I see through the noise. Say it. Claim it. Let it be your filter the next time your phone lights up with a name from the past. You don't owe your peace to anyone who left you in pieces. You don't owe your attention to someone who disappeared when you needed them most. Let the world see that you've outgrown the bait. Let them see that you're not the same person they once played with. And stay with me. Because what's coming next? That's where the power shifts completely. 3. Silence is a language, and you've spoken it fluently. Never respond to shade with shade. Stay in the light and let your silence disturb their darkness. You didn't text, you didn't call, you didn't chase. And let's be honest, it wasn't easy. You sat there, phone in hand, heart pounding, mind racing with 100 unsent messages. You wrote and rewrote them. You thought about breaking the silence, just to feel something, anything. But you didn't. And that right there, that silence, that was your power speaking louder than words ever could. See, most people think silence is weakness, that if you're not speaking, you're hurting, that if you're not responding, you must be suffering in silence. But let me tell you something that most people will never understand. Silence is a weapon. Not the kind that wounds, but the kind that commands. The kind that makes people question themselves. The kind that makes people realize what they lost. Silence is not the absence of emotion. It's the presence of self-control. It's your soul stepping in and saying, "Enough." And you've been speaking that language with perfect fluency. Every day you didn't reach out. Every moment you didn't beg for attention. You were rewriting your story. Imagine this. Your silence is a mirror. They walked away thinking they'd be back when they felt like it. Like your world would stay on pause, frozen in time, waiting for their return. But instead, what they saw when they looked back wasn't desperation. It wasn't sadness. It was stillness. It was power. It was growth. And that scared them, because people don't expect you to move on quietly. They expect drama. They expect tears. They expect you to fall apart. But you leveled up in silence. You became the version of yourself they never thought you had in you. You started healing in the shadows. And now your glow, it's different. It's not loud. It's not for show. It's earned. And now that silence you held, it's making them uncomfortable. You see, silence creates space, and space forces people to sit with themselves, to wonder, to overthink, to ask the questions they never wanted to ask when they were too busy taking you for granted. Why haven't they texted? Are they done with me? Did I mess this up? Oh yes, your silence is talking now, and it's saying everything their ego never wanted to hear. And let's not pretend it was easy for you. It wasn't. There were nights when you reached for your phone and had to physically stop yourself. There were moments you played out full conversations in your head. You wanted to explain, to get answers, to ask why. But deep down you knew the answer wasn't going to come from them. It had to come from you, from choosing to stay quiet when the noise inside you was screaming for attention. That's what makes it powerful, not the silence itself, but the decision behind it. Seneca said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." Well, sometimes to stay silent is the greatest act of courage, to choose not to react, to walk away with dignity instead of begging for closure that would only open old wounds. That's not just strength. That's transformation. And the best part? They feel it. Oh, they feel it. They feel it every time they check their phone and your name hasn't popped up. They feel it every time they post something hoping you'll see it and bite. They feel it every time their ego asks, "Why haven't they reached out?" And the answer? Because you're not the same anymore. You've learned a new language, the language of detachment, of control, of elevation. You're not speaking just to be heard anymore. You're silent to be respected. So here's what I want you to do right now. Drop this in the comments. My silence speaks volumes. Let it echo. Let it be your truth. Let it be your reminder that not every reaction deserves your energy. Not every message deserves a reply. And not every person who left deserves a seat in your healed life. Let your silence keep doing what it's been doing, breaking their illusion of control, revealing your growth, and reminding them that the door they walked out of doesn't lead back to who you used to be. Stay with me, because next we're going to show them that this silence, it's not just strength, it's strategy, and you're about to master it. 4. Before you reply, remember why they left. The truth is, everyone is going to hurt you. You just got to find the ones worth suffering for. Before you reply, pause. Not just for a second. Pause with purpose. Before your fingers dance across that keyboard. Before you hit send on a message you've rehearsed in your head 1,000 times. Remember why they left. Go back. Not to punish yourself, but to protect yourself. Rewind the tape. Not the good memories, not the laughs, not the soft lies they whispered when they still had access to your heart. Go back to the part you always skip. The part that stings. Go back to the silence they gave you when you were reaching out, confused and hurting. Go back to the days you waited for a reply that never came. The late nights when you stayed up refreshing your inbox, your notifications, your hope. Remember the weight in your chest when they started acting cold. Remember when the person who once said they cared suddenly acted like you were a stranger. That ache, that confusion, that wasn't love. That was emotional abandonment. They didn't leave because they were lost or confused. They left because they chose to. Maybe not with words, but with their actions, with their silence, with their distance. They slowly faded, thinking you wouldn't notice. And when you did, when you brought it up, they made you feel like you were too much, too needy, too sensitive. Like your basic need for clarity was some kind of flaw. They flipped the narrative, made you question yourself. But here's the truth. You weren't too much. You were asking the wrong person to give you what they never had the depth to give. Now here they are, popping back up like nothing happened, acting like a single hey will erase the damage, like you forgot how they left you to clean up the emotional mess they walked away from. But this isn't a movie. This isn't a romance. This is real life. And in real life, people don't get to walk away from you and then walk back in like the door was never locked. Let me tell you something, my friend. Every time you're tempted to reply out of nostalgia, remember that nostalgia is a liar. It romanticizes the version of them you created in your head, the version you hoped they'd grow into. But we don't respond to potential anymore. We don't mourn who they could have been. We accept who they were when it mattered most. And they weren't there. Imagine this. You're a house, and while they were living in it, they trashed the place, left dishes in the sink, broke the windows, tore the curtains, and walked out without even locking the door. And now, after you spent months fixing what they damaged, painting the walls, scrubbing the floors, planting flowers out front, they're back on the porch with a smile saying, "Hey, miss this place." Nah, it doesn't work like that. Because healing isn't just about moving on. It's about remembering who didn't show up when you needed them most, and making sure they never get the chance to hurt you that way again. Growth means you can look at their message and feel nothing but clarity. Not anger, not love, not pain, just understanding. Understanding that they walked away and you walked forward. That difference matters. Marcus Aurelius said, "Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears." But that doesn't mean you welcome the same person back in to injure you all over again. You can forgive someone in your heart and still keep them out of your life. That's not bitterness. That's self-respect. So before you reply, ask yourself, are you responding from a place of healed strength or from a place of old wounds, hoping to finally feel seen? Because if it's the latter, pause. Don't let the need for closure reopen a chapter you've already survived. You owe it to yourself to remember how far you've come. You owe it to the version of you who cried in silence, who begged for clarity, who questioned their worth. You owe it to them to not go back to what broke you. So here's your reminder. Drop this in the comments right now. I remember why they left. Let it be your shield, your filter, your boundary. Not to stay bitter, but to stay wise. Because next, we're stepping into the part where you regain full control. Not just emotionally, but strategically. Stay with me. The shift is just beginning. 5. The 24-hour rule, how to break their control. Self-control is strength. Calmness is mastery. You have to get to a point where your mood doesn't shift based on someone's actions. Unknown. They sent the message. Maybe it was a simple, "Hey," or "Been thinking about you." Maybe it had a little heart emoji to soften the blow, or maybe it was dry and vague, like they were doing you a favor by reaching out. Whatever it was, it lit a fire inside you. Your stomach turned, your breath shortened, and suddenly you were wide awake in a story you thought you'd finished. And now your fingers are hovering over the keyboard, ready to reply, ready to break the silence. But wait. Stop. Don't move. You don't reply now. You wait 24 hours, not because you're playing games, but because this is your moment to take back what they tried to steal. Your control. This is the part that most people never master. The pause, the silence after the storm, the power in the wait. You've already been silent for days, weeks, maybe even months. You've held it together, resisted every urge to chase, to reach out, to break. And now, when they finally crack and come crawling back with crumbs, you're about to throw it all away for one hit of validation. Don't do it. You see, they're expecting you to jump. That's why they reached out. They thought you'd still be hanging on, waiting like nothing's changed. They didn't send that text because they respect your growth. They sent it to test your healing, to see if you still bleed when they scratch the surface, to check if your silence was just a phase, or if you really meant it. That's why you wait, because every hour you don't respond is a mirror, and they're staring into it, seeing the reflection of their own broken expectations. They're used to having you at their fingertips. They're used to instant replies, to emotional reactions, to being the center of your emotional gravity. But this version of you, the one who doesn't jump, doesn't chase, doesn't beg, this version scares them. Imagine it like this. You're a flame they used to play with, thinking it would never burn them. And now you've turned into wildfire, controlled, focused, but untouchable. And they're reaching out with a single match, thinking they can still spark something. But your fire doesn't burn for them anymore. The 24-hour rule isn't about revenge. It's about rewiring your emotional response. It's about taking a step back to see clearly, to think clearly, to ask yourself, why am I even tempted to reply? Is it because I miss them? Or is it because I miss who I was when they loved me? That's the real question. Because when you wait, something powerful happens. You realize that the urgency was never about love. It was about fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being left behind. But fear is not a foundation for connection. It's a trap. So let them wait. Let them sit in the very silence they once gave you. Let them feel the uncertainty, the confusion, the powerlessness you lived with for weeks. Let them check their phone and wonder why you haven't responded. Let their ego start to crack under the weight of your stillness. And here's what's beautiful. You're not being cruel. You're being calculated. You're teaching them that you are no longer a free pass. That access to your time, your energy, your heart is no longer instant. That you are no longer emotionally on demand. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And this is your time to live that truth. The message came in. You saw it, you felt it, but you didn't let it control you. You sat with it. You chose stillness. That, right there, is mastery. So now, I want you to say it out loud, and then write it in the comments. I don't jump anymore. Let it be your declaration. Let it echo through the version of you that used to reply at the speed of heartbreak. Let the world know you don't jump anymore. You sit, you breathe, you wait. Because what's coming next? That's when you decide what happens on your terms. That's when the silence flips the dynamic. That's when they stop wondering if you'll reply and start fearing that you never will. Stay with me. Your power's only getting stronger. 6. What to say and what not to say. The less you respond to negativity, the more peaceful your life becomes. Unknown. So you waited. You didn't break. You gave it 24 hours, or maybe more, and now the fire in your chest isn't burning with impulse anymore, but with clarity. That message is still sitting there, untouched. And now you're thinking, okay, what do I say? But before you type even one word, hear me clearly. What you say next will either guard your peace or open the gates for another round of chaos. This isn't just a reply. It's a mirror, a reflection of everything you've become in the silence, the version of you that no longer chases, no longer pleads, no longer tries to explain your worth to someone who walked away from it. The version that doesn't need to yell because your peace already speaks louder than their excuses ever could. So here it is. Keep it short. Keep it calm. Keep it clean. That's the formula. You don't pour your heart out. You don't relive the past. You don't write novels for someone who couldn't even give you a paragraph of closure. No long explanations, no emotional confessions, no asking why. You don't need to make them understand anymore. You've already understood everything you needed to. So when you do decide to reply, make it something like this. Hope you're doing well. That's it. No punctuation gymnastics, no emojis, no emotional tone, just neutral, flat, cold but respectful. Because silence taught you one thing. They don't deserve access to your depth anymore. And I know it feels unnatural. You're thinking, but won't they think I don't care? Let them. Let them feel confused. Let them wonder where the old version of you went. The one who would have written 5 paragraphs, crying through the keyboard, begging for closure that never came. Let them feel the gap. The space between who you were and who you've become. Because that space, that's where the healing happened. You're not that desperate heart anymore. You're not that aching soul trying to stitch together what they casually tore apart. You're calm now, and calm is terrifying to people who once fed off your chaos. Think of it like this. You're a vault now, locked tight, still valuable, still rare, still full of light, but no longer accessible to those who never respected the key. And when you reply with calm, detached energy, you're not being rude, you're being disciplined. It's not silence for the sake of playing games. It's silence because not everyone deserves to hear your truth anymore. And when you finally do speak, it should feel like a whisper compared to the thunder of your past pain. So don't ask questions like, "Why did you reach out?" or "What made you think of me?" That just puts the power back in their hands. Don't tell them how much they hurt you. Don't tell them you missed them. You're not here to hand over your healing for a few words and a maybe. You're not looking for closure from the same hands that shattered your peace. And if they try to continue the conversation, if they send another message, trying to reel you back in, stay light, stay vague. You're not here to offer them depth after they walked away from it. If they ask, "How have you been?" you say, "Been good. Staying busy." Nothing more. Because the less you give, the more they wonder. The more they wonder, the more they realize you're not waiting anymore. And if they truly mean it, if they really want to come back, if they're serious, they'll show it through effort, not empty messages. They'll stop texting and start showing. They'll stop guessing and start proving. But until then, keep your responses like armor, light, strong, and impenetrable. So say this with me. Say it loud. Say it proud. Then drop it in the comments right now. I don't explain myself anymore. Let that be your line in the sand. Let it be the boundary you never had the courage to draw before. Let it be your message to the old version of you that used to give everything to people who gave you nothing. You're not cold, you're controlled, you're not heartless, you're healing. And your reply? It's not a door, it's a wall. A calm, composed wall that says, "I've moved on, but I don't need to prove it to you. Stay with me." Because next, we're going to talk about what happens after that calm reply. And trust me, they won't be ready for it. 8. What happens next? Sometimes, not saying anything is the best answer. Silence can never be misquoted. So you replied, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you just sat with it, calm and detached, watching them try to open doors that no longer lead anywhere. And now you're wondering, what happens next? Let me tell you, they're going to reply, fast, quicker than they ever did before. That little neutral message you sent, That calm, emotionless line like, "Hope you're doing well," it didn't satisfy their ego. It didn't give them the reaction they were fishing for. It didn't sound like heartbreak or longing or desperation. It sounded like peace. And peace, to someone who once fed on your chaos, is terrifying. You see, they expected the old you, the you who would have melted the moment they texted, the one who would have jumped at the chance to reconnect, the one who would have poured your soul into your reply, giving them all the reassurance they needed that they still had you. But what they got instead? A wall, a mirror, a version of you they no longer recognize. Now they're confused. Now they're uncomfortable. Now they're trying to figure out what went wrong. But nothing went wrong, my friend. Everything finally went right, because that reply or that silence wasn't for them. It was for you, to show yourself how far you've come, to prove that you don't chase closure anymore, because your healing no longer depends on their presence. It depends on your peace. Now watch what happens. They'll try to keep the conversation going. They'll send follow-up messages, some casual, some emotional, maybe even a little manipulative. "You seem different. I miss our conversations. I just wanted to check in." Don't be fooled. This isn't vulnerability. It's control disguised as care. They're trying to get a reaction. They want access again. Not to love you, but to feel powerful again. And if you fall for it, if you open the door just a little too wide, they'll slip in like nothing happened. They'll test your boundaries, push the limits, see how much of the old you still exists. But if you stay centered, stay still, stay in control, they'll feel it. And they won't know what to do with it. Because people who lose control of the narrative panic. When you're no longer predictable, no longer emotionally available, no longer feeding their ego with attention, they feel powerless. And people hate feeling powerless. That's when you'll see their true colors. They may back off. They may double down. They may even get angry. But all of it, every response, they're all reactions to one thing: your strength. The calm strength of someone who no longer breaks when the past knocks on their door. Don't mistake their persistence for depth. Don't confuse their confusion for regret. If they truly missed you, truly regretted walking away, they'd show it. With action, with effort, with changed behavior. Not just words, not just recycled messages and borrowed lines. Remember this: one message doesn't equal a changed person. One "I miss you" doesn't erase the nights you cried in silence. One "How have you been" doesn't make up for the months they didn't care to ask. Don't let a weak attempt make you question the strength it took to get here. So what happens next? That's up to you. You can keep your replies short, calm, surface level. You can hold your power, let them feel the wall they built with their silence, or you can say nothing at all, and let them sit with that. Let them feel the echo of your absence, the same echo you felt when they disappeared. This isn't about revenge. It's not about games. It's about dignity. It's about self-respect. It's about reminding yourself that not everyone who reaches out deserves a seat at your table. Some people are only meant to see the glow-up from afar. Some people are meant to learn that silence has a weight, and yours is finally heavy enough to be felt. So say it with me now, and drop it in the comments. My silence changed everything. Let it be your statement, to them, to yourself, to anyone who ever thought they could play with your heart and come back like nothing happened. Let it be your reminder that what happens next isn't about their text. It's about your choice.